Piping a perfectly round macaron is one of my favorite parts of the macaron making process. It definitely takes a little bit of practice, and I'm going to break it down for you step by step to help you get perfectly round macarons too. In my previous video, I did a real-time macaronage to help those of you who are struggling with that process. And so this is becoming a little bit of a series where I take all of the parts of making a macaron and I will break it down for you and explain it in even more detail. I use a number 12 Wilton piping tip to pipe my shells, and I like to use these large bags from the Cookie Countess. Place your piping tip into the bag and measure where you need to cut the bag so that your piping tip will fit. I like to twist the bag just above the piping tip before putting the bag into my cup. This keeps the batter from flowing out the end of the tip before I'm ready to pipe the macarons. As soon as you finish the macaronage process, you want to go ahead and get your batter into your piping bag so that it doesn't start to dry out from being in contact with the air. If all of your batter doesn't fit into your piping bag, then you can cover it with some plastic wrap or you can use a second piping bag. I actually do leave a little bit of my batter in the bowl because I can't fit it all in my bag, but I make sure to just really limit the amount of time that it's sitting there to less than 5 minutes. I use these silicone baking mats. They are linked in my Amazon storefront. Macarons hold their shape better on a silicone baking mat than on parchment paper, but you can use parchment paper. You will need to have a template underneath so that you know exactly how big to pipe each macaron. When you're ready to start piping, twist the top of your piping bag and hold right above where you've twisted so that your batter doesn't come out the top of your bag. Hold your piping bag vertically right over the center of the circle and start to squeeze the batter out. I hold my piping tip probably a centimeter or so above the surface of my baking tray. You don't want to be touching the baking tray, and you also don't want your piping tip to be up too high. You want it in just the right spot so that as you squeeze the batter out, the batter naturally spreads out into a circle. You can see that the majority of the time that I'm piping, my piping bag is not moving at all. I'm not swirling it around in a circle to make a circle of batter. I'm just holding it and squeezing it. The only time I move my bag is actually when I'm done squeezing the batter out. Once the macaron is the size that I want it to be, I stop squeezing, I release my pressure, and I do a gentle little swirling motion as I lift my piping tip up off of the macaron. And this keeps it from having a peak in the center. It just kind of keeps the top a little bit smoother. When I finish piping my first tray, if I had any leftover batter that I didn't put in my piping bag, I go ahead and make sure I get that batter into my bag. If that batter sits out for too long, you're going to have some lopsided macarons. After piping out your tray of macarons, we need to go ahead and break up some of the excess air bubbles. Some people like to pick up their tray and bang it on the counter. I like to pick up my tray and pat it along the bottom. I move my hand across the entire bottom of the tray and I rotate the pan around to make sure that I'm tapping underneath all of the macarons. If you have any large air bubbles that are trapped, it can cause your macarons to kind of explode when you bake them. After tapping your tray, you can grab a toothpick or a scribe tool and break up any additional air bubbles that you see on the surface. For the climate where I live, I only need to rest my macarons for about 20 minutes before I put them in the oven. So after I pipe my first tray, I set a timer for 15 minutes. And then once that timer goes off, I start piping out my second tray. It usually takes me 3 to 5 minutes to pipe a tray of macarons. You will need to adjust the resting time based on your climate. The more humid the environment, the longer it's going to take for your macarons to be fully dry before you put them in the oven. If you put them in the oven too soon, you're more likely to have little to no feet on them, or they might kind of crack and explode on the top if they don't have a skin before you start to bake them. Keep in mind that the longer your batter sits, the less stable your meringue is going to be. So that's why I usually only will make 2 trays worth of macarons at a time. As your piping bag has less and less batter in it, you're going to need to kind of squeeze down the batter and retwist the bag to make sure that you're getting all of that batter out. This second tray is going to rest while my first tray bakes. So when I finish piping my second tray, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that first tray is ready to go in the oven. If you're using parchment paper instead of a silicone baking mat, you'll want to make sure that you glue down the corners of your parchment paper with some of the macaron batter. The parchment paper will slip and slide a little bit on your baking tray, so be really careful when you pick up the tray and pat it. You can see a demonstration of that in my macarons with basic equipment video. I test to see if the macarons are dry enough by just gently touching the surface of one of the macarons. If the batter does not stick to your finger, that means that they are dry and ready to go in the oven. I hope this video was helpful. I'm also going to make a video about how to make your meringue and how to bake your macarons.